So, welcome back, Barry.
I'm back in the big seat.
Mm.
Back in the big...
How are you?
Not to say the big bed, but I haven't had murder.
How are you?
Sound. Apart
Good,
from my
good.
leg. And
So,
legs, fuck.
recap. It's been a while. It has been a while since you've been on, haven't you? Well, you were on.
Yeah, he's
for
been pestering me. It hasn't been the same. The followers have gone down, and I've had to redeem it. Come back in with all my knowledge.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you reckon it's your good looks? Your wit? I think Josh might be tinkering with it to try and get the...
Joshy boy.
That sounds better though, doesn't it?
Gone back off again, though. Gone back on.
Back off.
Can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't hear you.
I can't hear me either. I can hear me a little bit. I think he's taking out trying to take the hiss out of it. So.
Don't worry about it.
That's what happens when you're live.
I can't hear myself.
See all these podcasts that have got really good sound quality. Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah. See all these podcasts that have got really good quality. They're not going live. We've gone like the next level. We've gone live. So you've got to expect a little bit of cloudy audio when you go live because it's going to YouTube. How is everyone watching on YouTube? Hope you've all had a good week. It was a garden culture review last week. It was a panic read of the Garden Culture magazine. The lads will be laughing in the shop because I was promising to read it every day, and things just got in the way, and that's mostly the reason why Barry hasn't been here. How was Brian? What's the update on Brian?
He's all right.
Is he okay?
He's not the man he used to be. Minus the spleen. He's the things that man will do to try and lose weight. What do you reckon? You reckon lost a pound with the spleen? No, I reckon he's gained it.
Really? Do you reckon he'll ever get up back on a bike?
No, not at open now. No. Told him never to get on one anyway. He's too old.
And what's up with your leg?
Sciatica.
Is that what you've got?
Yeah. Doing too much.
You've had such a proper face on you the last 2 days in work. You just bats every night, isn't it? Ease it off. Massages.
Pink salt.
Brian's got his deep heat out.
Oh, it's everything.
I didn't want to say it to you before because I wanted you to let it work, but Jalal will tell you I did this. You've rubbed on the deep heat and gone, oh, yeah, it feels a little bit better.
Didn't.
And then rubbed it on a few hours later, didn't you? And as you've turned around going, this is going to work though, isn't it? I'm like, yeah. Looking at Jalal going,
shit. No.
You know, all that deep heat does is that capsicum oil just creates a burning sensation on the skin. And it doesn't really do anything.
Look, I'll try anything.
Do you know what you need? You need the ibuprofen gels. They actually work.
Do they?
Yeah. Because when my missus has had a
back
bad back.
Chiropractor Friday.
What about the chiropodist?
What?
For your toes?
Bad toes. I've got lovely feet.
We'll leave that up to you.
Just worry about getting your beard trimmed, son.
My beard does need a trim. You're very right.
We're going to do a podcast on Steve's beard. That's what we're going to do.
All the colours.
No. Just who's in agreement that he should shave it off for charity on next week's podcast live.
It's not happening on next week's podcast. Far too cold.
What?
Far too cold. This is like insulation, like rock wool for your face. I put clones in this.
Yeah, you probably could. There's that many hormones in it. Fucking hell. When I watch them cuttings, don't get frip.
There's no frip in here, you cheeky bastard.
Fucking full of might and that.
We've got Green Meanie. He's got an autoflower in a hydro bucket that's between 2 to 3 weeks into flower using GH 3-part with silica, CalMag, flora nectar. Anything specific I could do to increase quality? Absolutely. Listen to next week's podcast. Because this is even though this says how to increase plant quality, it's not. It's actually better. It's a 2-parter. And it is how to increase plant quality and yield. And this week's part is how to improve yield. So that's today's podcast, how to get more from your plant. I've made up a technique. It's called the lol to lol technique. When I'm going to try and make it a thing. Lol to lol. It stands for light on leaf to laugh out loud. So the more light you get on the leaf, the more laughing you'll do because you get increased yields. I'm going to try and make that stick. Lol to lol technique. You know, like Lollipop and Scrogging, Fim and Top and Monster Crop and Super Crop. And I'm going to come up with my own called lol to lol. Like light on leaf, laugh out loud. More light on leaf, more laugh out loud. That's the new technique we've come up with.
Is it?
Yeah. So we have got to.
No wonder the followers have gone down and you've begged me to come back. Fucking hell.
We'll see the viewing figures. Our viewing figures are very good actually. 2 million we got just after Christmas in the last 24 months. We're doing well. Cooking with gas. Thank you to everybody that's been listening and tuning in every week. So it's podcast 202, how to improve yields. And we're going to go through everything: environment, plant manipulation, genetics, nutrition, and then finish off with PGRs and some people using PGRs to get increased yields and weight. But first, as always, we have to give thanks to the partners that make this show possible. Barry, do you remember them all?
Apart from one.
You can actually say that one now. It's all sorted.
Is it?
Yeah. I will say no more. We'll kick it all off with the big one, the big man, the big girl, CANNA, the nutrient heavyweight of the hydro world. CANNA Nutrients. We are sipping tea from the Boost cups, the colour-changing cups. Very nice, actually. Very good cups of tea from CANNA. Who else have we got?
AutoPot.
AutoPot.
What is it?
Gravity-fed watering system for everybody from beginners to advanced professionals. Used by Dean Finley, one of the biggest commercial chili growers in the UK.
It is a boss system.
It is very good. And there's some new features coming out soon. Hopefully, very, very soon, you'll see some videos drop on the AutoPot YouTube. So if you, obviously people watching on YouTube, you do use YouTube. Go and follow AutoPot. You'll see how to use every single one of their systems. And the videos, I don't know who did the videos, but wow, there's some videography and cinematography gone into them. Absolutely phenomenal. Really, really good. But
someone shoot them.
I couldn't tell you who'd done them. I could not. They just look great. Really? So go and check them out on AutoPot. We also have SANlight LED. Belter. They've got the Q6W version 2.
What's that? 235 watts.
245 with the maxes. It went from 250 to 245. And the new one's dimmable.
Still daisy chain, but it's dimmable.
Barry knows his SANlight.
You want to see the dimmer on it? It's like a key fob. You just plug the dimmer into the back of the light and you get like a fob. Yeah. And you go, dink.
Aren't we one of those shops that, like, one of the only, there's like 20 key shops around the UK that can make alterations to boost it? So we are classed as a SANlight booster shop.
You can boost them, but I wouldn't. They work fine anyway.
Yeah, no need. And
they've done a marvellous job on it. A marvellous job.
See, this light, that SANlight was actually ready when we were in Switzerland filming the Q6Ws. Like, when I say ready, they had the technology there, and they've just spent the year fine-tuning the spectrum, fine-tuning the lenses, fine-tuning the input.
They fine-tuned it, something ruthless, let me tell you.
Who else have we got? We have got Can, Fan and Filters, Ice Maxes, Q-Max. Erwin, he's listening. What I came up with a nickname.
My man Erwin, he's in Perth, he's in Australia and all that now.
He's travelling the land down under.
Lucky man.
He is. Well, we did a shout out actually for everybody in Australia last week, going through losing possessions, losing homes, the wildlife, the bushfires. Would love an update from our Australian listeners, because it was actually an Australian listener that sent me in a full message on what's going on. It said, if you wouldn't mind, just give us a shout out on your podcast, because
I've seen some of the images of some of them animals and stuff like that, man. It's fucking bad, like. Sad. We're lucky in this country that we don't go through half the shit that other countries go through like that.
We are lucky. What was it?
We had a bit of a fire on the moors, but that was dog shit.
No
one goes there anyway.
I forgot about that. That was done in a few days, wasn't it?
Yeah, and I think some little turd caused it.
It'd be funny to find out who caused this in Australia. But
have they said it was caused by someone? Have they said it was like...
Actually, I know we're going off topic here, but I watched something where I think you might have shown me magpies starting the fires on purpose or something. In Australia, there's a bird, I don't know whether it's a magpie, but they basically find something that's lit or what do you call it, like tinder, and they pick it up and drop it into shrubland, because they know that once it's eagles, it's like a sparrowhawk or an eagle, and they drop it into where it's really dry, causes a fire, and all of the small animals start moving out, and then they just pick them off. So it could have just been a bird that started it all. Intelligent that though, isn't it?
For a bird.
Yeah. So
not bad.
Thoughts with Australia as well, again. And last, but by no means least, we have Revolution Diva Microelectronics with their HPS ceramic metal halide and a Vici LED. So that's the partners. Let's crack on with the podcast. The intro goes here.
All good? Ready to go? Turn my voice up a little bit. Oh, God, everyone watching, the whole family.
Are you ready to go? Are you built to be in the house that I built, in the booth that I built?
I know people tune in every Sunday to listen, but even when business is good, we still manage to do the podcast. NPK.
What's the comment saying? Health is wealth. That's a good username and is absolutely right. I've just harvested. I feel as if I've lost the smell. What can I do? Don't shower for a few weeks and that should sort you out, shouldn't it? Yeah. Get that BO right on point. Well, when you're harvesting plants that have got where you want the aromas to be enhanced, then the drying process is really important. When we were drying tobacco, the smell wasn't too important when we were cutting it down, but when you wanted it to dry slowly. Didn't want to do it too quick, otherwise it would retain a bit of a moist smell. If you did it too fast, it would also lose the smell because you're essentially drying off the terpenes and they'd fall off. Nice slow dry, take your time, 45 to 50% humidity, 20 to 22 degrees Celsius, and just let it go. Don't try to rush it when people rush it, or if they haven't got the humidity on point or good airflow, too fast, too slow, and you can just ruin 12 to 15 weeks worth of work. So that's what we'd say. If you've lost the smell, there's not much that you can do to get it back, to be honest with you. Just slow right down and crack on. Have you any experience with?
What you've got to remember is you've done all that work for that long, from taking whatever plant it is from a baby to a fully mature adult, and then some people will rush the end of it the last 2 weeks and just don't take your time, get them temperatures and humidity right, key environment, and your product will be good.
Yeah, man. So obviously keep the questions coming. We love the questions, but today is how to improve yields. I'm going to start with environment. As you've seen and read and heard on countless blogs and YouTube and podcasts, environment is king. It is the key for everything. We'll start with temperatures, and we're going to try and keep it nice and light and bouncy on every single sub-topic within environment, and then moving on. So temperatures high and low, the effect on terpene production. I know that terpene production is to do with quality, but I wanted to sort of get you thinking and start a little bit of a debate, because we were talking in the shop and then we were talking about lighting, which is a part of environment. And we said, well, what about lights where you can use different bulbs? So 2Ks, 4K, 6K, 10K. And I said, well, that's really more for quality. But then on the other hand, if you increase oil production, then that's going to lead to a little bit of extra weight, isn't it? So more oil, more weight. But then we get onto efficiency of light, but we'll come on to that. So that's something to definitely consider. But temperatures high and low, go through very quickly the basics. Try not to go above 28. Try not to go below 20 degrees Celsius. And there you've got yourself a little bit of a buffer. 29, 30 degrees is not the end of the world, but the plant will start transpiring a lot quicker. Too low and it goes too cold and the plants stop transpiring, stop uptaking nutrients. And there's the key, is if you go too high and too low, the plant stops drinking or drinks too quickly and just wants water. And that's not how you pack on weight. So making sure that those temperatures are absolutely on point.
If the temperatures are key, you're going to get better food into the plant, aren't you?
Yeah.
If it's too hot, it's going to want just water.
Yeah.
So it's getting no nutrients. If it's too cold, no, hang on. What have I just said?
I don't know.
I've got all lost. I was
it's
on the right track.
Yeah,
though,
yeah. If it was too hot,
it's going to drink more water than nutrients.
And not uptake.
Yeah. But if it's perfect, it'll take more nutrients.
Yeah. And that's what we talked a little bit with regards to flushing, where the article on last week's podcast on garden culture said, if your nutrition is perfect all the way through, every bit of nutrition that you give to the plant, the plant will use. Yeah. So you're not flushing anything out. Yeah. If you overdo it with nutrients, then maybe a flush it could be key. But if you get your nutrition spot on, then the plant uses all and you're fine. And like you said, if it's too hot, they drink water, they'll probably take a little bit of nitrogen up, a little bit of the macro elements, and leave the micro elements. So you're lacking on
you
some.
You create more problems because you've been in your like DWC or your tank fed, like gravity fed or whatever, and it's taking the water. The nutrients are getting stronger in the tank, and if you're not there to top it up with water, then it's going to have to drink raw nutrients just to stay alive, and that's when you're going to end up with burn and problems. And so it is key to keep your temperatures right.
Yeah, man. And when we talk about temperatures, you can't talk about temperature without humidity because the two are inextricably
hand
linked.
in hand.
Yes, hand in hand. High humidity with a high temperature. So if you've got a high temperature, if you can somehow increase your humidity a little bit, then the plants will lose less water. So you can play it safe. If you're in a cold environment and your humidity is really high, then transpiration basically comes to a stop. And the effect that has on your yields is, again, the same with temperature. If the plant can't take up the nutrients at once, it's going to stall. Not so much a problem in veg because you can always veg it for a little bit longer. But as soon as you hit that switch to 12-12,
you want that plant to be stress-free.
Yeah. And any mistakes you make when it's on 12-12 are pretty much irreversible. If it's 8, 10, or 12 weeks to you finish your flowering cycle, if you do something to stunt it for a week, then you can't get that week back because the plant will finish when it's ready. So temperature and humidity are super key because they are the main thing for increasing uptake of nutrients. And then if you want to take it to the next level, is where temperature and humidity link together to VPD, which is basically vapor pressure deficit. It's the maths of combining temperature and humidity along with leaf temperature. So your leaf temperature should be 2 degrees cooler than the room. That means that the plant's transpiring healthily. And if you download a VPD chart and keep temperatures and humidity at the different stages of veg to transition to flowering to end of flowering, then you just absolutely nail on how much nutrition your plants take up and how much water they're uptaking. Have you ever had that problem where...
No,
you haven't had that problem. You don't have problems, do you? I thought that might have been the answer.
Go on.
Where when we've grown fruit and plants and they've looked really big, and then when you come to harvest them and you get left on the side, they're picked off the plant, they're left on the side, you just seem to lose a lot of the weight. And you think, where is all that gone? That can be down to temperature, humidity, VPD, because the plant is uptaking a lot of water. And it's like you've seen the UFC fighters, and they look beefed up on all the press conferences, and then a little bit beefed up for the fight, but on the way in, they've lost all the water and they just look like skeletons. It's a little bit, that's what happens with your plants. Your plant can uptake that much water if it's stressed or if you haven't got everything on point, that when it's done, water evaporates, water will leave the plant, especially when you dry plants, and then you can just see things shrink and shrivel to nothing. And that is a key of plants not taking up nutrition. I can see a few comments coming in. Let's just do that before we move on to air movement and CO2. So Health as well said, do you dry trim or wet trim?
Dry.
I would say dry as well, because you just lose too much if you do it wet. And there's a lot of other reasons as well why you wouldn't do it wet, but just take our advice and go with a dry trim. It's just much better. Indica Head Shop said, I've seen setups with 4 lights in a square, 2 lights of ceramic metal halide, 2 are HPS. How does this work out with the crossover? It's 2 different spectrums. And then I've got a question from Matthias for you, Barry. He said, how do I grow a larger bush? That one's specifically. But to go back to Indica, he's seen setups with 4 lights in a square, 2 lights, ceramic metal halide, 2 HPS. How does this work out with crossovers and spectrum? Very good. Mixing spectrums is what a lot of the big commercial people are doing. Mixing spectrums with metal halide and HPS. I've still got to find somebody who's done HPS with ceramic metal halide, because metal halide, which is basically a pure blue light, and HPS work well because the pure blue from metal halide links well with the red from the HPS. But ceramic metal halides are a full spectrum, or much fuller spectrum, very similar to the sun. So what happens when you add HPS to a light that's already quite full spectrum?
I don't like the idea of mixing LED with HPS.
No.
No.
Some people are doing it, aren't they, with SANlight? It's hard for us to comment on that sort of stuff because, especially with LEDs, the good fixtures are relatively new to the market, and people are using just LED in the summer. And now people, in my opinion, from this summer that's just gone, have kept some of their LEDs and use them with HPS, but I haven't heard proper.
I don't think you'll hear bad stuff, but I just don't think
the mixed spectrum is what are you going to do?
Yeah,
I think when I spoke to Theo, he said it'll do no harm, but if you can just run with HPS, do that.
If you can
just run with LED,
do that.
Yeah. If you have to mix because for whatever reason, then try it, give it a go. He said nothing bad will happen.
No.
So, but we do need people to find out and do that test and see what sort of results they get back. But with ceramic metal halide and HPS, it's the same thing. I'd like to see what other people are thinking. What are they doing? Has anyone tried that before? But I just know that metal halide and HPS works great, and the full spectrum will help increase yields as well because the plant has got something closer to the sun. So Barry, Matthias has asked, how do you grow a larger bush?
Mighty growth answer.
What
Chop the fucking life out of it and fill it full of Mighty growth answer. You'll be all right, lad.
That's from CX. The Mighty Growth Answer, very good product. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get to nutrition.
Veg it longer.
Yeah. Top it and veg it longer. What was it that we were getting some cocoa in before, and we were talking about this a little bit, and we said we can have this wrapped up in a few. Oh shit, yeah. We could wrap this up in a few seconds. I can't tell you what we actually said, but I can give you a clue. Barry just went, genetics, get good genetics and fuck everything else.
Good genes, mate, good genes.
And that's basically the truth of it. You could have this podcast wrapped up, get a fucking boss genetic that yields like a fucker and can take a pound and you're laughing.
Slapping.
Yeah, kick it around the room, you're laughing.
Pull it up the puff, throw it across the room.
Everyone's got one of them. Everyone's got one of them. You know what it is. You know what it is. So, Matthias, we'll talk about growing a larger bush in a minute with plant manipulation and genetics and nutrition. So, Indica, going back to his question, said, in a square, it seems odd being 4 lights as some are under CMH and others under HPS. It doesn't seem even. This was a Just the Wings advice to the grower. I know what you're saying. The idea of a mixed spectrum is that 4 lights would go well over a 2 meter by 2 meter square. So if you had 4 1 meter square trays, HPS, ceramic metal halide, and then HPS, ceramic metal halide, by the time the light has hit the plant, there's going to be a nice crossover. You are going to get a little bit of HPS on the left, and you're going to get a little bit of ceramic metal halide on the right. But overall, the spectrum will blend together. And it's a good point as well. Move your plants about in the room, whether you're mixing the spectrum or not. Turning the plants in the pot so that the whole plant is getting even sunlight or light, and then even just moving them around the room, because wherever your intake is, that plant's going to be cool. Yeah. Wherever your plant is that's furthest away from extraction, that's going to be really hot. So moving your plants around the room can help. A bit of a pain in the ass, but if you want to improve yields, you've got to put the work in. Air movement to increase yields. So CO2 concentrations with increased light levels. Air movement is key. Air movement is key for a few reasons. Reduced incidence of powdery mildew, botrytis, they'll absolutely annihilate your yield. So if you get botrytis, then instantly your yield's going to be down. If you get powdery mildew, it's not the end of the world, but less light hits the leaf. Less light hits the leaf, less power in the engine, the motor room of the plant, and you're going to get less yields. So air movement's key. Good intake, good extraction. With good intake comes carbon dioxide. Now, carbon dioxide is one of the main things you can do or add to your room to increase yields, but there's some additions that you need to think of. If you've got one HPS, 600 watt HPS, and you've got good intake air and good extraction, the amount of CO2 that your plant can actually take is supplied by the intake air. So adding bottles of CO2 is just a little bit pointless. People might come back to me and say, you shout about TMB bottles and you shout about exhale CO2. So let me tell you why. Exhale CO2 used in early stages of veg when you shouldn't really have an intake coming in because it removes the humidity. So you have slightly less air movement to keep the humidity up, so you can add a little bit of CO2 through bags, and it helps increase growth. If you're in flowering now, and we've done the tests, the exhale bags in flower in a room just does nothing. It just gets taken away too quickly.
Yeah.
TMB bottles can help quite well if you're willing to use one bottle per plant.
Yeah.
And that ends up being expensive. So the time to use CO2 is when you are absolutely super saturating your room with light.
Yeah.
If you've got a room, let's say a 2 meter by 2 meter room, and you put 1,000 watt double-ended lights in there, you might put 4 in there or 5, depending on what you're going for. If you're in the 4 or 5 region, that light is intense, and the plant is running at 4,000 revs per minute. It's going for it. Barry loves it when I use the car analogies.
If he's not using UFC fighters or cars.
You love the car analogies. If your car's running at 4,000 revs. So tell me, what is nitrous used for?
I don't know.
Don't you know?
It's on Fast and the Furious, all that.
Is that not real rallying?
No.
I thought you had some nitrous tucked away somewhere. A little red button.
No.
What's that red button in your car for? I don't see an ejector seat.
I put a big red boot on. That's what I do.
But isn't nitrous when you'll know though when you've got a rev, it's like 6,000 revs per minute. To
just explain to them what it is. Just explain
so basically,
what you were saying.
When you
You've
plant,
off on track
when your plant is going,
this is why I'm here, because he just goes off on something. Tell them that when you're using 1,000 watt bulbs, it's like running your car at full revs in second gear.
Yeah,
you're flat out.
Yeah,
you need something good, don't you?
You need to go into third gear or use some nitrous, and CO2 is your nitrous.
CO2.
It helps the plant's metabolism keep up with the amount of light that you're giving it, and that is where CO2 really comes into its own. Is when you're super saturating your room with light. Add some CO2 in.
Then you need the supplements. The air intake's probably just not enough.
Exactly. Yeah. Or it's being extracted before the plant can use it. So getting that CO2 in there will absolutely help you increase yields. But you've got to have the light levels to make sure that you're making the most of it. Yeah.
Just speaking to your mic forward as we keep moving away.
I'm right into me, Mike. You know what it might be. You're doing really well this week. You're on top of
Staying still because of me sciatica.
Yeah. You might have to have sciatica every Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
Yeah.
So CO2 light levels need to be high. Brilliant if you've got multiple light fixtures. Where are we up to there? Lighting, increase it. So the number one way to increase your yields is to increase the amount of light that you're giving to your plants. That is basically the hard and fast of it. And we could probably end the podcast right there.
Yeah. Better lighting.
Yeah, better lighting, increased lighting, because more light equals more energy for the plant. And that's
if you're using magnetic ballasts, you shouldn't be. They're a thing of the past. Should be all on digital lights, whether it's the cheap digitals or the expensive. No one now in this country should be using magnetic light kits. That should be like, when did America stop using them? They haven't
like when we started the podcast.
Yeah, no other country uses magnetics, only us.
I remember
minge bags.
I remember the first year.
And them digital light kits now, the price of them just come right down. They're more efficient. They don't get as hot. People have them in the rooms, which makes your room go hot. So you're not just buying an extractor fan now to remove the heat from 6 high pressure sodiums. It's now magnetic ballast. What you've got to get rid of the heat off as well. You know what I mean? So
I remember going to Spanish 2014, and I heard Thomas having a conversation with an American. I said, "So, dude, what kind of lights are you using?" And for the Americans, that's me American accent. And he was like, Thomas, like, "Oh, we sell loads of these and 600 watt magnetic light kits." And the American looked at him, and I'll never forget it. He was like, "Sorry, say that again." Thomas's accent. He went, "Magnetic light kits," and he went, "Shit, you guys still use them? Yeah. Fuck!" I was like, proper. He was like over the moon, eating about magnetic light kits. He was crazy. No. There might be some guys in the US listening, going, "Fucking hell, I used to use magnetics."
Stop using them then,
because over there you haven't been using them for years.
The price of digital lights has come right down now. You should be able to afford them. It's a key factor in your kit. And you're going on about room temperatures. Well, a digital ballast, you can dim it down. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. So when you're having a problem with heat and you're running magnetics, you can't do nothing. All you're doing is turning lights off. With digitals, you can dim them down. So it does play a major role. Go on, what?
No, I'm just looking at some of the comments, but we'll come back
What
to
are
them.
the comments? Come on, just tell me.
Is
he still going on about his big bush?
No,
is it his bush or their bush?
He hasn't confirmed or denied what bush he wants to increase. We await. James said, "Yo yoga party people," by doing his best impression on Jacob Rees-Mogg lounging around. And then said, "Some plants can use nitrous oxide as a nitrogen source from the air in polluted cities. Some plants cannot." Absolutely correct. Nitrous. So the nitrogen in the air is N2. That's the chemical for it, or the chemical symbol for it is N2. And it's actually nitrogen fixing bacteria like azos. They can actually extract N2, make it NO3, nitric oxide, and give it to the plants in nitrogen. I'll be honest, I've not missed your snoozing when we just dip our toe into a little bit of science.
It just goes all science on me.
But yeah, you're absolutely right, Jamie, or Jammer. I don't know actually how to say. So light and increase it, making sure the vegetative stages get enough light. The reason plants stretch, and I'm talking about stretch because if your plants stretch, you will definitely decrease your yields. If the plant can't support weight because of its stretching, then it just won't provide weight, or it'll snap and break off. So to prevent stretching the vegetative stage, it's not really about the lights being high. It's about intensity of light. If you've got 1/600 and you've put a high up, the intensity is not good enough, so the plant will stretch for the light. If you had 10 600s and they were equally high, if not higher, plants won't stretch because the intensity at the light is good enough for them to not stretch. So make sure you don't get your plants to stretch. And then with regards to temperature, going back to temperature, the most important thing for stretching is don't let your nighttime temperatures and your daytime temperatures be too far apart. Keep them as close together as possible. Bigger nighttime temperature and daytime temperature, bigger stretch. There's a simple one, and not many people will remember to do it. Replace your bulbs and your shades.
Yeah.
Shades probably last about a year before the reflectivity really starts to decrease. But in between, every time you use them, you should get warm soapy water, cloth, wipe off all the shit and the oil and the residue, dry it off with another cloth, and put your bulbs back in. Replace your bulbs. If you buy the cheap ones, you need to do it every grow.
Yeah.
What are they? £17.50, £20 for a bulb?
And the good bulbs, they work.
Oh, yeah.
But if you should just use them for the 3 months and then bin them.
Yeah.
It should just every time you start a new cycle, you should just get new bulbs.
If you want to try and make your pennies stretch a little bit longer, I know Barry loves to make a penny stretch, you could reuse those bulbs for the next veg cycle and buy new bulbs for the flowering cycle, couldn't you?
Yeah.
But then eventually you get to the point where...
It's not that. I know what I don't like about high pressure sodium bulbs. The older they get, and not a lot of people know this, the older they get, people go, oh yeah, they lose like lumens and they lose this and they lose... And what they do more than anything is get hotter. You know what I mean?
They get less efficient, don't they?
Get less efficient, so they get hotter. And then that's heating your room up.
People forget that. A 600-watt bulb, if it's not giving you the light that it used to, it's still going to use that 600 watts and it can only go out as heat because it can't do it. So replace your bulbs to reduce temperatures and get the right output as well. People seeing the yields go down after months and months, and they come in and go, what can I do? When's the last time you changed your bulbs? 2 years ago? 2 years ago. 2 years ago, I've heard people saying that. 3 years with shades. I'm like, bro, replace your bulbs, replace your shades, mate. Fucking hell. Come on.
Just replace your ballast as well.
1,000-watt fixtures. Now, I'll come under some scrutiny because there's a lot of debate around lighting at the moment. LEDs, ceramic metal halide, what's efficient, micromoles per meter squared per joule. To most people, it doesn't mean a fucking thing. Barry will fall asleep.
Well, are you going to talk about that now?
No.
We
We talked a little bit about it last week on Garden Culture Review, but I do need to go back to that subject at some point. 1,000-watt fixtures, double-ended, are the most efficient because they produce the most amount of light for the electricity that they pull, and it goes down 600s, 400s, 250s. They become less efficient as the bulb goes down. So don't forget that this is live on YouTube, and Barry just pulling all faces. I just need to see this.
I can feel it air under my nose or something. I looked at the mic.
Look at your face on YouTube now. People, when this goes back
I'm
out.
not bothered.
I know, but you forgot. what did you do? You felt a hair under your nose.
Yeah.
And you're going to have to rewind to about, when did we go? Look at that face.
Oh, lad. I
It's-
could feel something. Look, it's there, you bastard.
Is it what is it on the end of the mic? For people that are listening on the podcast, if you go to about 38 minutes into the YouTube episode,
All right, calm down there.
you'll see that.
Hell.
You'll see that gorgeous face, the face that pulls the listeners in. So, LEDs. This is where I'll probably come in for some criticism. LEDs are becoming more and more efficient, but for new LED growers, you'll almost certainly see a decrease in yield for the first few grows because you'll be getting used to using them. You'll be getting used to different transpiration rates, the height,
temperatures, everything.
the height that you have them away, which is different for every LED. Some LEDs and some of the feedback that we're getting, especially from the SANlights, people using them are saying, listen, for the wattage that they're drawing, comparable to what I've used to use, I'm getting more from them.
What you've got to watch with them now is, and I'm like honest when it comes to LEDs, is people get them because they go, yeah, it's cheaper. I'll get 4 of them. It's cheaper than running that. It is cheaper to run 215 watts of LED or whatever, but some of them are still 660s. And even with the 660s, you've got to put supplemental heating. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Supplemental heating in there. Now, people put oil-filled radiators in there. Well, but what are they, Steve?
2,000 watts.
2,000.
2,500.
2,500 watts. Is it much cheaper now? Now for a 2,500 kilowatt. Know what else I've heard? I've heard people with rooms with like 10 LEDs. Do you know what? You know the way normally we'd have our filter in that top corner there and our air intake in that bottom corner, so it comes right the way through the room. The switch in it. So the air in is at the top and the outtake is at the bottom.
Yeah.
So it drags the heat off the LEDs down into the plant and then out.
It's a Barry top tip right there. You haven't had a top tip for a while. Yeah, because you obviously, does heat rise?
No.
There's a question for you.
It's a fucking myth. It doesn't. Cold air pushes it up.
Yeah.
Hot air doesn't rise on its own.
Yeah. It's interesting.
You know that?
You've taught me everything I know.
I don't know. Hot
Apart
air
from
doesn't rise.
rallying.
People go, yeah, it's got, it's got hot in here, hasn't it? Yeah, it's got hot, mate. The heat rises, doesn't it? Nah, mate. It's the cold air coming in from under the fucking doors that's pushing the hot air.
Cold air being denser sinks and pushes all the warm air up.
Yeah. But that's a good one, that though, isn't it? If you're running the room
like
with
that.
LEDs, you have your air in at the top of the room where your extraction would be, but put your extraction at the bottom of the room, and then
Pulling all the heat
it's
down.
pulling all the heat. Because there is a little bit of heat on an LED, not a lot, but if you've got 10 LEDs, even 4 LEDs in a room, what a tent, it's just going to pull that little bit of heat over your plants.
That's a good top tip. We'll have to repeat that in the summer as well for when the LED fixtures take
I'll
off.
repeat it now if you put your ear in.
And I've said I can't wait for everyone to jump onto this bandwagon, but I've been saying for like since the summer last year when we really started to see LEDs happening. I said 2020 is going to be the year of the LED.
I told you that.
Did you?
Yeah.
I knew I got it from somewhere.
Is this my podcast or your podcast?
We'll see. You can do plant quality next week, and we'll get some notes. LEDs are becoming more efficient, but I just want to see more. I want to see a few more growers with a few different LEDs telling me that they've got the yields that they wanted. I just don't want to jump into that hype bus just yet because
I know
everyone
the
did it.
quality's good on them.
Quality's 100%.
I think
say that.
yield's just second to come, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's probably is there, but right before we get onto podcast and say, yeah, LEDs are more efficient than 1,000 watt double-ended HPS, I just want to make sure that these LED manufacturers aren't manipulating the data. That's something really important that I want to do this year is check with light meters and see all these people coming out with these claims of micromoles per joules and this efficiency and we can do this per square meter. I need to sit down. I'm gonna get in touch with my good friend Slim because he's on it with me doing the grids. We'll both get the LEDs. We'll both take the measurements. We'll both look at the measurements together. He doesn't know this yet. He might if he listens to the podcast. I've just told him.
Now,
yeah. I know he'd well be up for that because he was in Switzerland with us and we both the same exact same stuff. Grid squares, getting a proper read and a millimeter turn or 2 mil turn of the wrist that you couldn't even notice can reduce the amount of light that the sensor sees and you're manipulating the data. So I want to make sure people aren't manipulating the data. Ceramic metal halides for increased yields. I'd say slight decrease in yield compared to the equivalent wattage in HPS.
But quality goes up.
Absolutely. So again, we'll really get into that next week, but ceramic metal halide, definitely for quality, probably not so much for yield. Let's show that comment. So Forza King said, use LED, not a lot of stretch, to be honest. That's what I've experienced. I've got 780 watts of LED and 315 watts ceramic metal halide, and I'm running at 24 degrees Celsius. Very nice room. The reason that you're not getting stretch is because the intensity of the light. You could have them quite high up. Intensity from them LEDs will be impressive. Indica said, for temperature, a mix of LED and ceramic metal halide seems good. Micro Light on YouTube, on Instagram, does great tests on all LEDs. I know, to be honest, I speak to Theo, who used to work for Gavita, he now works for Fluence. He's my first protocol for LEDs and for anything lighting. But Micro Light on YouTube, he's really good, and his Instagram is phenomenal. So if you want to use LEDs, definitely go and give him a follow. Top fella. Where were we up to? So that was if for lighting. Basically, to increase yields, increase your lighting. Don't forget to increase your extraction to get rid of the heat. But more light equals more yield. And that brings us on to plant manipulation. So we've got more light in this room.
pH?
We're getting
about water quality.
I've put that under the subcategory of nutrition.
Oh, have you?
Yeah, because I know that you're going to probably pull that apart. But we will have a good chat. We have been streaming for 44 minutes. I don't want to let this go too far because I know you're in pain with your leg.
Oh, I'm in agony.
I'm going to be nice to you.
I need manipulating.
Not by me.
I do.
Plant manipulation, Scrogging, screen of green. So increase the amount of light that you can get in your room. But if you just put one plant in the middle of a room and then surround it with 10 lights, you're not going to get the increased yield that you think you're going to get because the amount of light hitting the floor is a waste of light. It's just going to lead to heat. So you need to scrog your plants. And that is basically creating a larger surface area for the light to hit the leaf. More light hitting the leaf equals increased yields. And that's it. That is the equation. Get more light into your room, manage your temperatures, and get as much of that light emitted by the bulb to hit that leaf. And that's how you're going to get increased yields. And it's easy. Scrogging is cheap. Like, what do you have to buy? A little bit of wire. Apart from buying like a little bit of scrog net or a bit of screen, it'll cost you nothing but time. And I guarantee you, if you've never scrogged before, look at pictures, look at images, look at YouTube channel, and I guarantee you will increase your yields than if you just grow vertical plants. Scrogging, so light hitting the leaf, that will increase yields. SOG, sea of green, again similar to Scrogging, but rather than manipulating the plant, you just grow lots of plants, veg them for a short amount of time. But the benefit of it is that you decrease your veg time. Yeah. Exactly the same amount of flowering time, but you've got a large number of plants, so the light is still hitting a large canopy. And the way you increase your yields is the bigger canopy, and you can probably get an extra grow in there by the reduced veg time. So within a year,
you could have an extra grow.
Exactly. So you're not technically increasing your yields, but you're increasing the amount that you can do in 1 year, which for me is an increased yield over the year. Topping, fimming, and pinching increase yield, because we're going to get on to my guy who wants a bigger bush. That's how you get bigger bushes. Topping, fimming, and pinching. Topping, you snips, you take off the lead. What would you? I don't know what to call it. The lead leaf, the newest sprouting part of the plant. You basically cut that off, and you produce more lateral growth, more sideways. Fimming, I missed. You pinch it, but you try and take the whole thing off, but you miss, and you just get the newest growth. And then you've got pinching as well, which is where you just pinch it and leave it. Topping is good, but the plant takes ages to get going again. Fimming is my preferred method because I've used it. The plant gets going quicker.
I think fimming and pinching are not far off the same.
Yeah.
Because you're up with pinching, you've only took a little tiny bit of the leaf off. So all it's done is stall it, just like a little bit of stress into it. And pinching's the same. All you're doing is just giving
Just
it a squeeze,
squeezing.
just to enough to damage it a little bit. Where
That's the
it
thing.
can't grow, and it's got to fix itself.
Yeah.
So everything else around it is going to come up, bump.
And it does do that.
And
You know what I've found? When I thin, the plant stalls and does lateral growth and looks great. You know, when I've pinched, it's like the leaf's still there. It still continues to grow. It does do lateral growth, but then you get like leaves that are weirdly shaped and like had chunks out of them. I don't know if it's because you've damaged the leaf before it started. So my personal opinion, I'm not the biggest fan of pinching and then leaving it there. I would thin. And I've never topped because I just thought it has the same effect. I just thin it and you've got less veg time then. Lollipop and defoliation in veg and flower. So very, very important, but dangerous techniques for people to do if you've never done it before. Lollipop, and like it says, you basically, the week before you flick your plants, you can take off all the shite on the bottom. This increases airflow, takes off the shit that will never make it into proper flowers. And when you're not putting the energy into the shit, you put your energy into the good stuff, and you will increase your yields. Defoliation is basically is lollipopping, but there's different techniques, there's different amounts of defoliation. The main thing to say with defoliation is take off less than you think, because you can always go back to
I don't take that much off.
Yeah, and that's the best
I'll
thing to
only
do.
take stay there, you sit down. I only take off leaf that's covering fruits.
Yeah, exactly.
That's all I take off.
Some people go just next level and will take off everything, but you can't put those leaves back on.
No.
At the end of the day, we're here to talk about improving your yields. And the way you do that is to get as much light onto the leaf as possible. If you start taking off leaves, you just basically
solar panels away.
That's about exactly what I was going to say. You're up on your roof, smashing solar panels, wondering why the electricity's gone down.
Yeah.
Less energy for the plant to make.
If it's covering, if I've got 2 leaves like that and then a leaf like that, I'll remove that leaf to give it to them 2 leaves.
Yeah.
But I don't go ballistic.
You can always take more off if you need to. You can't put it back on. So be very, very careful.
Last week of veg. I do last week of veg and then week 2 to 3 of flower.
Yeah.
Somewhere there.
Because you know them.
But I have gone a little bit longer. I've done it on week 4 of flower. But I haven't gone ballistic. It's just like
a little bit of an air
couple
cut.
Here, a couple of there, a couple of there.
A little free back and sides.
Yeah.
Cut short on top.
Yeah, like your beard.
Not yet. It'll be short. I promise. Stop going on.
I'll never do podcast again.
Where will you store your clones? You'll have to actually buy some Jiffies.
Liverpool is rinsed with thrip because of that.
So defoliation, be very careful, but definitely can it help increase yields. Some techniques, one of them I have never done, the other one I have. Monster cropping is the technique I've never done, which is taking clones from flowering plants. The reason it's on the podcast to improve yields is because when you monster crop, take the clone from the flowering plant, put it back into a vegetative state with 18 to 24 hours of light.
Why?
What do you mean why?
Well, when you take it off in veg, when there's no stress.
I know, so this is the debate. So
I just don't understand it.
Yeah, so when you take it off in veg, the traditional way, you've just got a plant in veg.
You've took a clone that's in 18 hours light. You've took a plant that's in 18 hours light, and you've took a clone off that plant.
Yeah. And
you can put it back into 24 hours light or 18 hours light in a propagator. Works both ways.
Yeah.
I don't see the point in putting your plant, and it's stress to put your plant. It stresses your plant, doesn't it, Dieter, when you go into flower?
Major stress.
So you've gone from 18 hours light to 12 hours light, and it's caused major stress. And then once the plant settled itself down in week 3 of flower and thought, right, I'm at this point now, this is what I'm doing. We're in. Now you took a cutting off it and put it back in the propagator on 24-hour light.
It's a bit,
or 18-hour light.
My honest opinion is it's a
like,
bit mad.
Wow, what are you doing, mate?
I looked it up.
It's not that. I just see that as you're ruining your genetics. That's got to ruin something. You've got a fucking plant what's now got no root, which is feeding through the leaf, which is stress anyway on the clone.
Yeah.
And it's heads up its ass because it's like, wow, what's just happened here? I've gone from fucking 12 hours light now into 24 hours light. It's just fucking...
To be honest, that's a good point. Remind me about that. The stress it'll put it on. But I've never tried it because I didn't see the point. The people who like to do this monster cropping say that when they put it back into veg, there's hardly any vertical growth because the hormones have been removed from the plant because you put it into flower.
So
it just
creates genetic, though, hasn't it?
Yeah.
You've weakened it.
100%.
I
think so.
That
I might be wrong.
When you take cuttings off plants and then grow them and then take cuttings off them and then grow them and cuttings off them, it weakens and weakens and weakens and weakens. That's got to do damage.
Yeah, it does.
It has. It's got to do damage.
The benefit from monster cropping, I would get from just fimming.
Yeah, but because it grows wider.
And just doesn't stretch.
It doesn't.
But there's other techniques.
It grows wider because it's just all heads up its ass and it doesn't want to grow.
Everyone I've spoken to said when it starts producing new leaves, you don't get like what you would traditionally get from your leaf. You'd get like randomly mutated one leaf popping out when you might be used to 2 leaves, or you might get 2 leaves when you're used to 4 leaves. So it puts major stress on it. And everyone I've spoken to says it's 3 weeks before you even see the plant start to get it back together.
I wouldn't do that. I'd just take the cuttings off a mother plant or a plant that's in veg and just do not give them stress.
Yeah. And I just want to pick up on your point because I hadn't thought about that with genetics. Everyone's fucking with genetics these days. Yeah. And then I want to pick
up. It's a fucking nightmare anyway because nothing's fucking stable these days.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
You're doing well reading my brain today. Nothing is fucking stable. So back in the day, we used to have stable genetics and you could fuck with them a little bit because if you really get into the genetics, then you can stress it, but the plant knows where it needs to be. Everything's like a new strain and a new flavour and a new aroma.
I'm going to do it on Jalal's hobby now. Jalal will know this is like everything's going like that, It's not just like plants where it's like fishing's going like that. Fishing lakes. We used to go fishing and catch roach, perch, and carp and tench. Now it's an F1 skimmer, it's an F1 bream, it's an F1, it's an hybrid that. Yeah. And it's like, what the fuck is going on? You know what I mean? It's like
you said something very important there though. You said that Jalal's hobby was to fish, but you said catching fish.
Yeah, he doesn't catch much.
Jalal's hobby is fishing and to relax by a lake. And he's now started providing evidence.
Takes rods. But he is providing evidence of photos now. He has to bring photos to work.
Yeah, that's because we're having a competition. He has got to catch more fish than I climb mountain peaks this year. He's off to a good start. He's on 2, and I have done none. But mark my words, when I get up them mountains, I'm going to do a few peaks in a few hours.
No chance.
What was that? Was that you in your rally car? When are you next out in the rally car? April. Oh, it's a new rally car as well. He's blagging. He's been telling everyone that fucking he hasn't been on podcasts because Brian's been sick and the shop's been shocking and whatever. The excuses were really it's because he's got a brand new rally car. It's fucking red and white and I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about the colours, but identifying the car, but it does look a monster. So that's what Barry's been up to. He's been vroom vroom. So monster cropping, I'm not a fan. Don't see the point. Would love to hear other opinions though from
I just
other
don't
growers.
See the point of it. But don't get me wrong. I'm not saying people who do it shouldn't do it. If they want to do it, mate. If it works for you, it works for you. But it's not something I'd do.
Next one on plant manipulation is super cropping, which is essentially when the plant is young, you'll get the stem, you'll pinch and bend down slightly till you hear a pop. What this does is weakens the stem for a few days, but then the plant will heal itself, produce a knuckle, and produces a really thick stem, produces a plant that doesn't stretch as much, but can hold more weight. So super cropping I've tried when we were doing
Is this where you see them people doing the plants and they go like that? And they have all...
Exactly.
I thought they were like just for decorative purposes.
They are really.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've never seen someone say I've got monster yields from that.
I've got a room full of like fucking...
But I actually found out that's called plant... I think it's called plant manifolding. Because like a 10-way manifold.
I've seen the pictures on Instagram of some people and they've got a plant about that wide. And it's just like... the main stem comes out and then it just goes... And then goes like
it's perfect, isn't it?
And I look at them and think, "Fuck me!"
Yeah, there's some time
well there. It is
major plant manipulation.
It's good if you've got the time to do that. But I wouldn't put that there as me
increasing yields,
or qualities or anything. That's just something like that's hobbyist. That's like someone who's just got a bit of time on their hands and wants to mess with an odd thing. Yeah, that's great.
But obviously, anyone disagrees, we love a debate, argument. To get in touch on the comments on the podcast at NPK Live. Send us some messages into there. Tell us what you do with your plant manipulation and environment to get your yields up. So next up is genetics. So genetics we've touched on already. I've made 3 points. Grow a strain continuously to learn what it can do and how to get the best from it. The thing that pisses me off the most is that there's all these new strains. It's big in the tomato world. It's big in the chili world. In America, they've got. I keep an eye on what's going on in America and around the world with cannabis and whatever it is that you're growing. And I see it in with tomatoes and chilies. Just these new strains, new chilies, the hottest chili, the sweetest tomato.
I'll grow one and then
not bothered again.
Shite that, and then another next one. Shite.
I've got chocolate.
It was all right.
I've got a chocolate mint habanero chili, and it's great. You grow it, it's not so great, and you go, oh, my mate down the road said we should be growing fucking cayenne pepper, Big Joe bomb squad.
I think everything's got the potential. It's just whether you can take it out of the plant.
Just like if you find a genetic, work on it, work with it. I don't think you truly understand the plant at a specific gene until you've done 4, maybe 5 successful grows with it. Only then you know how much it stretches, how much food does it want, what EC levels you can take it to, how quickly it recovers from manipulation. Get to learn your genes and stop fucking fannying about, hopscotching around on different genes.
You just worrying about your bush.
Yeah. Get to know your strain. That is how you will increase yields. Different strains will deliver different yields and potencies. So that's why you need to get to know your strain. Do you want potency? Do you want yield? Do you want aroma? Do you want flavor? What is it that you want? Find a strain, do it a few times, and just learn and take it easy, take it slowly. People trying to get to the end result too fast. The best growers in the world that you all look up to, and that I look up to, and Barry will look up to, been doing it for 30 years. They probably haven't done 100 strains. They've probably done 10 strains, and they've got the 4 that they love now, and they just do them. So work hard and concentrate on the strains that deliver what you want to achieve from your crop. Seeds or clones. So I've said seeds vary, give different results every time. Clones allow you to reasonably predict quality and yields. So find the strain that you want from a seed if you want to, or get the clone that you want from your mate, and figure it out. Seeds, they'll be different every time. So if you're looking to get that highest yield, you can't go from seed every time.
No.
You're really struggling with your leg.
Oh, it's killing me, lad. Oh, I'm dying to get up and just walk around for a minute.
We're nearly there now with nutrition. So moving on to nutrition. How much money do people spend in the shop on feed?
On average? Yeah. What you mean, just one person for a full cycle?
Yeah, so not including your A and B. How many times do people come to the shop and say, I'm in flour, I need this, and this. And when my mate said use that, when I've seen on Instagram to get that kid's using that, so I want just throw a bit more PK on just for good measure. Like that happens quite often, doesn't it?
Every day. So
what I want to say to everybody, and this is, I will argue and debate and whatever with anybody on this subject, nutrition is probably only 10% of your yield. I guarantee you, somebody, and I've said this loads of times, and Barry said it, if you have somebody with an amazing environment, an A and B, and somebody with 10 different bottles of nutrition and a shit environment, the person with the A and B will get the best yield.
If your environment is 100% dialed in, you could piss in that pot and you will get a good result.
Yeah.
If your room is absolutely dog shit and you've got the fucking...
You spent $1,000.
Gold dust fucking nutrients, it's good luck because you're going to fail.
Coming soon from Barry, Gold Dust Nutrients. golddustnutrients.com. Now, that's it. 10%. So how much are you spending on additives? And if you're buying, so I'll give you an example because it's worth it, in my opinion. If you're using A and B, and if you're using A and B, that is all you need to grow a successful plant. Mm. But there's a massive benefit to adding PK at the right times. So the benefits of adding PK outweighs what it costs to buy the PK. That's why everyone does it. Then using something like CANNA Boost. CANNA Boost speeds up the metabolism of the plant so it can uptake more A, more B, and more phosphorus and potassium in flowering. So that is worth the money. for what you use. But then for increasing yields, people might be coming over and buying New Millennium Winter Frost, which I posted up on Instagram before. That's just for people who want quality. Terpenez, Terpenator, all these oil enhancers, that's for quality. All you really need is a good solid A and B, potentially a root stem. I've done A and B without root stem, and they've literally flew out the pot.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those. A and B, a good solid PK, and maybe a boost if you know what you're doing and the environment's spot on. And that's really all you need, to be blatantly honest with people. Everything else has got a place, but it hasn't got a place, in my opinion, for yields. It's environment, it's light, it's manipulation, it's genetics. And if there's any argument to be had against what I'm saying, then I'd say it's only worth 10%. So if you didn't have, I think A and B, perfect environment, versus A, B with all the other additives and a perfect environment, I genuinely think you're only increasing yield by about 10%. Do you know what I mean? I don't think nutrition has got as much of an impact as people think that it has. And that's, I've just said there a note. How much do you spend on nutrition? What do you expect to get back? Are you getting the most bang for your buck? How efficient are you being with your nutrition? And that leads me on to pH and EC and water temperatures. What effect do they have on yield? I know you've got something to say on pH and EC. Barry just doesn't do it.
Nah.
But I understand why.
When it comes to DWC,
obviously, yeah.
But in cocoa, I don't.
Yeah, and I can understand why in pH, because Barry won't use a shit-based nutrient. If you use when I say shit-based nutrient, that's a bit unfair. And people think I'm saying this because they're a partner, but it's not. CANNA literally have got, in my opinion, the best base nutrients that you can get for the vast majority of growers.
Even if I don't use, see the problem that you've got with people. It's great to do pH and it's great to do EC. I don't knock it for anyone, but I don't do it because if you look at the back of a CANNA bottle and it says 4 ml per litre, that's in the right environment. That is in the perfect conditions that your genetics going to handle that 4 ml per litre. Your temperatures are perfect where your plant will uptake that. Your humidity is right. Your everything's key. Well, I never take my A and B over. If I use CANNA, I never take it over 3 ml per litre. So I know, like Steve says about revving the engine, if my revs go to 9,000 revs, I'm only sitting at 4,500 revs. There's loads more in the engine. I could give them more A and B if I wanted, but I just don't because it doesn't need it. The genetics that are running don't need that.
Yeah.
And if they do show signs of, see, there's a difference, and without sounding like I'm blowing my own asshole up here, it's like some people can't read a plant.
Yeah.
Well, if I'm feeding my plants, I'll just look at them.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I look at them, I don't need an EC pen and I don't need a fucking pH pen because I read my plants. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if I see it's overfed, I'll back off. If I see it's underfed, I'll add more.
Yeah.
And I can tell that by looking at the plant.
Yeah.
Can't tell you what the EC is in the fucking bucket once I've mixed it, but I can tell you if the plants need more or less. And the maximum I ever go to with base nutrients is, if I'm using CANNA A and B, is 3 ml per litre. Yeah. That's the maximum.
So essentially what you're saying there is it doesn't matter when you read the EC, it doesn't matter because if you've got an EC of, let's say, in veg, you're well into veg, you're on 1.5 EC. Like if you've got a cold environment, that 1.5 EC means fuck all.
It's shit.
Yeah, you
should take that 1.5. Yeah, it means nothing.
Yeah,
means nothing.
You should be actually have a slightly higher EC.
Yeah, yeah.
If your room's really
if my
hot.
Room's red hot, I shouldn't be putting that much in anyway.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. I shouldn't be putting 1.5 if it's supposed to be at 1.5 on that week, and my room's running a fucking 31. Then it shouldn't be on 1.5. It should be adjusted down. Yeah. That's the difference. What people don't know is
they stick to the ECs.
It's the calendar growers and they stick to the EC and go, oh, it doesn't matter if me box fan's gone off in the loft. That doesn't matter. I'm still going to do me EC to fucking 1.8. Well, nah, that's not what you should just be giving your fucking plant water if the room's that fucking hot. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. So, and if you want to go to the proper, so it's where people are sticking adamantly to ECs and not looking at the environment and not reading the plant and thinking, no, the EC pen says 1.5, that's perfect. That's what the rules say. So it's not, it's adjusting to what the plant needs. The reason I like EC and pH, if you use a good base nutrient, it's not that essential to pH. And if you know and understand plants, it's not that essential to EC. The reason I like it is because Barry knows I love to experiment, and if something can catch you off guard, and it's happened to loads of people, soft water, hard water. If the shop gives you the wrong base nutrients, if you're in a soft water area, for some reason the shop had hard water's got loads of acid in it. So if you add the A and B hard water to a soft water area, the pH goes to like maybe 4.5 because it's that much acid in it. And you could just unwillingly give that to your plants. I've always said pH and EC, if you know how to read plants and you know your environment, you probably don't do too much for you, but it's just preventing any possible problems.
Oh yeah.
And if you're working with a new nutrient like Mighty Growth Enhancer, for example,
I was to go to
imagine you followed the bottle of Mighty Growth Enhancer.
If you ask me now to grow a plant that I've never grown with a base nutrient that I've never used, I would pH and EC.
Yeah. So for people that are starting out, give it a go. When you've been doing it for a while with the same nutrition, the same genetic, you can probably, it's not that important. Yeah. But definitely for me, if you're using a new bottle, Mighty Growth Enhancer says use 1 ml per litre.
And you got no fucking chance.
You'll send the EC through the roof. If you don't measure EC and you throw it in at 1 ml per litre, you could probably burn your plants.
You will.
If you know how to use it, you'll use it 0.5 ml per litre because then that gives you a good amount and doesn't increase the EC too much. And to improve yields, it might be worth having a look at EC and pH. But I've made the mistake as well. See these Blue Lab pulse meters with the 2 spikes? Well, I only went and measured some cocoa a while back, and the EC was reading close to 4. I was like, shit, that's heavy. But the plants looked okay. They looked good. It just goes to show that maybe not follow the rule book quite as closely as you think. Be aware of your measurements. Be aware of what's going on. But then, like, I could have easily gone flush with fucking hundreds of litres of water to get that pH down and could have had a knock-on effect on the plant. Using tools is good, but don't let them dictate how you run your grow room. And that's basically it. We've done 70 minutes there. Barry is aching.
I am fucking in agony.
The last thing I wanted to say was PGRs. Do not use them to improve yields because you will dramatically affect quality. You can potentially harm people if they're using bad PGRs. If you don't know what PGRs and you're a new listener to the podcast, go back and listen to the PGR podcast. We go through it in full information, but don't be tempted to use PGRs. You shouldn't have to. You shouldn't have to. Just get your environment spot on. And that's basically the long and short of it. Comments. Where are we up to with the comments? Forza King said, bigger pots, bigger yields. Instant thoughts.
No.
I'd say no as well.
People say to me, it's bigger roots, bigger fruits. And I go, no, lad, it's not. I don't believe in that. Yeah. I do not believe in it. Now you've got a root system that's 5 times bigger than it normally is. And now your plant's got to take loads of its own energy to preserve its own root system. Yeah. That's not what you want.
Exactly. Some of that light that you've now manipulated the plant, you've scrogged, you get every single bit of light onto that plant and thinking yields are going to go up.
Let's just say 70, let's just say in a standard pot with a standard plant and that 70% of the light that it got, or 70% of the plant's energy went into the fruits and 30% went underground to the roots. Now you've got this monster plant and it's got this monster root system. It's still the same. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And the plant might then have to spend 50% of energy on the roots, 50% of energy on the plant, on the fruits. So even though you've got a bigger plant, the energy's got to be distributed to support this bigger root network. So it's not always bigger roots, bigger fruits, and bigger pots, bigger yields. It basically goes on veg time.
I can understand what they say when they say bigger pot, bigger yield, because if you've got a bigger pot, the only way you've got a bigger pot is because you're doing a bigger veg. Yeah. If you grow a bigger plant, you're going to get a bigger yield, but it's going to be a longer process.
You're going to take longer, and you're getting bigger yields because you've got a bigger leaf surface area to capture that light. Connor said that genetic drift, which is what we talk about with regards to unstable genetics. Genetic drift just takes you to a place where you can't accurately predict what the plant's going to do. Indica Head Shop said, I'd like to see some evidence of genetic drift or weakening. I'm not sure. So it's not good evidence what I'm about to say, but it gives you something to think about. Stable genetics, so let's say stable genetics at 100%, they've been grown from seed, they've been in a really good environment, and you take cuttings in a good environment, put them into a good environment, genetics not going to move about. Even if your temperature is slightly high, humidity too low, some little aspects you didn't quite get spot on, a stable genetic will still revert back to form and give you a good, healthy cotton. The way you see genetic drift is unstable genetics. So all these fancy flavors, fancy aromas, fancy names, people combining two plants and so on and so forth, they're not doing it properly. The genetics aren't stable. The genetics aren't locked in. So you've got a room that's too cold or too hot, for example. You take the cotton, and now that plant is, let's say, 95%. So that plant, no matter what you do to it, even if you put it into a perfect environment, can only achieve 95%. And you imagine, you take cotton after cotton after cotton after cotton. If you just take it in an environment that's maybe 2% off, after 10 generations, you've lost 20% of its genetic potential. It might be a little bit simplistic in terms of genetics, but that's essentially what's happened. Unstable genetics, if in a bad environment, you're going to lose points on it.
And
that's essentially what happens.
In a bad environment, it'll punish it.
Yeah. And the reason, my proof is we've had stable genetics and took hundreds from them. Unstable genetics and still got what we expect. Unstable genetics, you go for fourth generation down the line. It's like, where does the yield gone from this fucker? And that's where you get it. And that's the debate I'd like to get going with people. Health as well said, do weak genetics cause Hermes?
Yeah.
Yep. Indica Head Shop said mainlining really improves yield. Just A and B, a lot of growers are growing impressive quality, definitely. And Paul Lowe says afternoon all. So mainlining, I would love to understand why it's increasing yield, because the amount of effort that's going into it, you might only be able to do 2 a year. So over a year, how much does your yield increase? So rather than looking at individual plants over a 3-month period, let's look at what you do in a year and how do you improve yields over a year. That's another important thing to start thinking about. So we went quite fast there. I can see the pain in Barry's eyes is hurting me emotionally. We need to wrap this up. So that's it. That's how we increase yields. Thank you very much for listening. You have been on podcast 202. If you've got any questions and you've been listening, send them to the podcast Instagram at NPK Live. If you're watching on YouTube, send them to the same place or tune in next week and ask your questions. And that's it. What else do I have to do? Oh, yeah, of course. I have got to do 2 shout-outs because I said I would do for the next few weeks. Flashback, for anyone who knows that T-shirt, that was Nano. And if you listened last week, you understand why I'm shouting out this person and this company every week. Grow Genius, most concentrated silica on the market, getting some rough time from people who don't understand the science and the technology. Go and check it out at Grow Genius or at Grow_Genius. It really is the dog's bollocks.
The good gear, mate.
It's cheap. Gear. It's concentrated. Monosilicic. Get involved. I am Stephen. Barry has been back with me.
Yeah, man.
He's going to go for a massage. I'm going to go for a cup of tea. And we'll see you all next week for podcast 203, How to Increase Plant Quality. Love yous and leave yous. Bye-bye.
Yeah, man.